Imagine this. You're alone. It's pitch black. No fire.
No walls.
No weapons except a sharpened stick. Somewhere close, something is moving in the bushes. You won't last the night. Now imagine the opposite. 10 bodies pressed together in a shallow pit. Shoulder to shoulder. Breathing in sync. Someone's always half awake. That second group? They made it to morning. Every single time, for hundreds of thousands of years, more than the person sleeping alone. Today we're going to find out why the safest place on Earth for most of human history wasn't a locked door. It was another person's body heat. Let's start with the obvious question. Why does sleeping alone feel so dangerous in the first place? Sleep is the one time your body is completely defenseless. You can't run. You can't fight properly. Your senses shut down by up to 80%. For a species with no claws, no fangs, and skin thinner than most predators' fur, that's a serious design flaw. Early humans weren't apex predators. Not even close. For most of our evolutionary history, we were mid-tier on the food chain. Big cats hunted us. Hyenas scavenged our dead. Even large birds of prey have been linked to early hominin remains found with talon marks. So a lone sleeper wasn't just uncomfortable. A lone sleeper was a walking, or rather lying, invitation. Now here's the interesting part. Evolution doesn't just accept vulnerability. It solves it. And the solution our ancestors landed on wasn't better claws or thicker skin. It was each other. This is called the many eyes principle, and it's not unique to humans. You see it in fish schools, bird flocks, herds of antelope. The math is simple. If 10 of you are asleep, but even one of you stirs at every small sound, then collectively, the group is never fully unconscious. Researchers studying sleep patterns in small-scale societies, groups like the Hadza in Tanzania, who still live a foraging lifestyle close to how our ancestors did, found something remarkable. At almost any given moment during the night, at least one person in the group is awake or in a light stage of sleep. Not because someone assigned a night watch. It happens naturally. Different people have different internal clocks. Some are light sleepers, some are heavy sleepers, some wake up to use the bathroom, some just stir randomly. When you put 15 or 20 people together, their sleep cycles overlap in a way that leaves almost no gap in group awareness. It's a built-in alarm system that costs nothing and requires no planning. Just proximity. And it's not just about predators. Sleeping close together also protected against something just as deadly, the cold. Before fire was reliable, and even after it was discovered, keeping warm through the night was a constant battle. A human body loses heat fast, especially at night when temperatures drop and metabolism slows during sleep. Here's a number that puts it in perspective. Hypothermia can begin setting in when core body temperature drops just a couple of degrees below normal. In open environments, especially at higher altitudes or in colder climates during ice age conditions, a single night without adequate warmth could be fatal. Now group huddling changes the equation entirely. When multiple bodies are pressed together, they trap a shared layer of warm air. Think of it like a living blanket. The more bodies, the more efficient the heat retention, up to a point. This is actually still observed in nature today. Emperor penguins huddle in the thousands to survive Antarctic winters, rotating positions so no single penguin is stuck on the freezing outer edge for too long. Anthropologists believe early humans likely did something similar. The people on the outer edge of the sleeping pile took the brunt of the cold and the risk, and periodically, the group would shift, so no one person bore that burden all night. It wasn't just survival. It was cooperation, built directly into how people slept. But there's a layer to this that goes beyond just physical safety. Sleeping together in close contact does something to the brain. Physical closeness during rest triggers the release of oxytocin, sometimes called the bonding hormone. It's the same chemical released when a mother holds her newborn or when close friends embrace after time apart. For early human groups, this wasn't a side effect. It may have been essential. Trust between group members determined whether that many eyes alarm system actually worked. If you don't trust the person sleeping next to you, you don't relax. And if you don't relax, you don't get real, restorative sleep. So group sleeping wasn't only solving the predator problem and the cold problem. It was reinforcing the social glue that held small bands of 20, 30, maybe 50 people together for a lifetime of shared survival. There's actually anthropological evidence for this in modern hunter-gatherer societies as well. Communal sleeping arrangements are still common in several small-scale societies today, not because people lack the resources for separate space, but because the practice is deeply tied to social structure, comfort, and even how children learn to feel safe. Children especially benefited. A child sleeping alone in the deep past had almost no chance. A child sleeping in the middle of a pile, surrounded by the warmth and warning system of adults, had a real shot. So, what did this actually look like physically? Archaeological sites give us some clues. At sites like Sibudu Cave in South Africa, researchers have found layered bedding made from plant material dating back around 77,000 years, arranged in a way that suggests communal use rather than individual sleeping mats. The sleeping area itself was often a shallow depression, sometimes lined with grass, leaves, or hides, positioned close to the fire and small enough that everyone had to sleep in close contact just to fit. This wasn't accidental design. A smaller sleeping space meant less area to defend, less exposed surface for cold air, and forced proximity, which, as we've covered, was exactly the point. Fire placement mattered too. Most reconstructed sleeping arrangements show the fire positioned at the entrance or perimeter of the sleeping area, acting as both warmth source and a rough predator deterrent, since most animals avoid open flame. So picture the full setup. A shallow pit, lined with soft plant bedding, a fire burning at the entrance, and a tightly packed group of bodies inside, shifting periodically through the night, with someone always semi-alert. That's not a primitive inconvenience. That's a finely tuned survival system, refined over hundreds of thousands of years of trial and error, where the ones who slept separately simply didn't pass on their genes as often as the ones who slept close. Here's the part that might surprise you. We're not that far removed from this. Modern sleep researchers have found that people who sleep next to a trusted partner often report better sleep quality, fewer nighttime awakenings that they consciously remember, and lower reported anxiety at bedtime, even though objectively there can be more physical movement disturbance. Some researchers argue this is a direct evolutionary holdover. Our brains, even now, register solitary sleep as slightly more threatening than group sleep, a subconscious alarm system left over from 100,000 generations of ancestors who needed each other to survive the night. It's part of why isolation and loneliness are so strongly linked to poor sleep and increased stress in modern research. Your body might understand, on some deep instinctive level, that being alone at night was never really supposed to be the norm. So the next time you feel a little safer falling asleep next to someone else, or a little more anxious falling asleep completely alone in an unfamiliar place, that's not a modern quirk. That's 77,000 years of survival instinct, still running quietly in the background. Ancient humans didn't sleep in piles because they lacked privacy, or space, or comfort options. They slept in piles because it was quite literally the difference between waking up and not waking up. Every eye that stayed half open through the night. Every body pressed close for warmth. Every bond of trust built in that shared dark. All of it stacked up, generation after generation, into the instincts we still carry today. If you had to survive one night out there, alone in the open or packed into a warm pile with your tribe, let me know in the comments. And if you want to know what happened when someone in that pile got sick, that video's right here. See you in the next one.